everyone. I'm Shannon with Lincoln County Historical Association. I actually know a lot of you, which is great. But my understanding is before I took my current role at LCHA, they had had this is pre-COVID, there had been a very successful symposium where all of the historical societies in the county came together and shared ideas and shared resources. And it just seemed like such a great idea to try to repeat that. So I had it in the back of my head, we need to bring that back this year. When I mentioned it to Alex, Alex said, we'll take care of that for you, which was great. But I think it's important because I think that we're all working alongside one another, doing a lot of the same sorts of things. And I think it's important that we can share ideas with one another. I think many of us are dealing with a lot of the same challenges, limited financial resources, limited knowledge on outreach and best practices, because so many of us are volunteer driven. We're not all in that situation, but most of us are. And I think that in so many ways, we could kind of help and support one another to lift each other up and build a stronger network, because my vision is really that this is a county that loves our history and knows our history, rather than, picturing each of us as like the individual owners of the history. I like the idea of the history being all of ours that we share, and we kind of, promote and lift one another up in that way. So that's why I had the idea.
That's great. That's perfect.
It wasn't my idea. It came from before me.
Well, I'm so glad you suggested it and gave some background, because that's exactly what I was going to say. So this is perfect. Before we get going a little further, some quick housekeeping. There's a restroom in the back. There's also a kitchen in the back if you need a sink or anything like that. I think there's some bottles of water if you need that. Always good to start with the agenda. So for the next 15 or 20 minutes or so, we're going to do sort of round the room introductions, or maybe the next 10 minutes, and then online. After that, we're going to do a roundtable discussion where I'm going to ask you all to introduce yourselves again and talk a little bit about your organization. So again, introduce yourself. And just really broadly speaking about sort of what your organizations do, like who you serve, what your programming is. If you're comfortable and willing, sharing a little bit about your staffing and volunteer structure, and then digging a little bit deeper again, if you're comfortable and willing, the budgetary stuff. It's always helpful to know where you get revenue, or sort of what your budget expenditures are like. But again, only if you're comfortable. The idea is that this is a collaborative space, so that if there are collaborative projects, this is the way of sharing that. And then after we go over that, if you want, we talk about your goals for your organizations for the next year, and then I'll ask you your goals for the next 5 years. So I just share that so you can get yourself thinking about that for the second half of the meeting. But I'll have some prompts up, so you don't have to memorize these questions. And then we'll spend a few minutes. I'll talk a little bit about some grant programs that I help promote and provide technical assistance for. And then we'll just sort of wrap up with next steps. So how does that sound for everyone? Good, okay. All right, so as I mentioned, at this point, I do want to do an around the room introduction. So we'll start with in the room, and then we'll move to online, if that's all right with everyone. So Ed, if you want to actually get started, that would be great.
Yeah, fine.
Again, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Just, this is the quick one. No, so not your whole organization, so just your name and your organization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
And with our life story also.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. 50-day minimum.
Okay, my name is Ed Pentelari, and my organization is Historical.
Jeff Tarbox, the two hats, one's the Friends of Westport Island History, which is our 501c3, and then the town appointed Westport Island History Committee.
I'm Dave Boucher with the Edgecombe Historical Society.
Becky Schaffner, Edgecombe Historical Society also.
And I'm Connie Hartley. I'm the Outreach and Development Manager with the Boutte Region Historical.
And Kay Wilder, the current president. So,
I'm Michael Amico with Open House of History, which is based in Marlborough, and also I'm a member of the Marlborough Historical Society.
No.
Sounds like that.
Regional planning.
Mike Titus, Newcastle Historical Society.
And Karen Paz, Newcastle Historical Society.
Amanda Hatch, Francis Bergen Center.
Macy Pepper, Francis Historical Center.
I already introduced myself, I'm Shannon, I'm Lincoln County Secretary.
And then online, I'll call on you each, so it's not so awkward. Jody, you wanna get started?
Hi, I'm with Old Bristol Historical Society.
Thanks, Jody. And Peggy, do you wanna go next?
Sure. I'm Peggy Knitsky. I'm with Historic New England, and I manage Castle Tucker, Nickel Sortwell House, and Bowman House in Lincoln County.
Thank you, Peggy. And last but not least, is Jenny, or Jen, sorry. Oh, I think you're on mute, Jen.
Yeah, I'm Jen Pye and I'm the director of the Monhegan Museum on Monhegan Island.
Thank you, Jen. And anyone else online that I missed? I think that's it. Excellent. So this is where we go back around the room again and you reintroduce yourself. I always like to do 2 intros because I personally forget. So I always like when people reintroduce themselves. And then we're gonna get on to our prompts. So for that, I'm gonna share my screen. And don't take these too literal. This just gives you some guidance on what would be good to share. So again, just share your name and organization again, and sort of what your mission and goals are for your org or what you do. And then if you wouldn't mind, a little bit about your staff and volunteers. And then as much as you're comfortable or willing, and you don't have to mention it, especially if it's something you don't know about, sort of your funding and budget overview. And then your hopes for the next year or the next 5 years. And feel free to do this out of order. Feel free to not use this at all, but this is your chance to sort of talk about your organization. And I always find it helpful to provide some guidance, but no need to be literal in this. Ed, again, would you mind starting out?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so again, Ed Pentolari. I moved to Alma in 2016 and quickly realized we have some really great historic building resources in town. But they were falling into disrepair and lack of maintenance. I learned shortly after arriving that the previous 501c3 that had existed, folks had allowed that to lapse. And so I kind of resolved to do something about that. And the upshot was that I was finally able to create a new 501c3 to help support the maintenance, preservation, restoration of historic buildings in the town of Walnut. At the time we founded the organization, we were really never envisioning that we would hold title to any properties. The town was, as I said, I think it was definitely underinvesting in the maintenance and preservation, restoration of the properties. And so our idea was not to take on that responsibility, but to supplement it. And I got religion decades ago about just on the concept that one of the best things that folks can do to support maintenance, preservation, restoration of historic buildings is not just to have them as kind of expensive lawn ornaments in the community, but to have them used. So an important part of what we've undertaken is to just try to have events at the town properties. So we've been doing that more and more and more over the last several years. This year we had events on 31 different dates over the course of the year, which was remarkable kind of for a shoestring organization and shoestring budget. The other thing that was kind of an unexpected development is that a couple of years about 3 years ago now, a friend of mine, who, which was Richard Plunkett, Wizard of Odds and Ends, who owned the Head Tide store, initiated conversation with me, just saying, hey, Ed, do you think, I was on the select board at the time, and he knew I had an interest in historic preservation. He asked, do you think it'd be good for me to leave this property to the town of Walnut? In my estate plans, and I said, I think that would be a fantastic idea. Fast forward, almost November 24th last year, so almost exactly a year ago, that was the last day that he was in the shop. And he died just before Thanksgiving. The upshot is it's historic Alma, not the town of Alma, that's ended up accepting the title to the Tide store. So now we are kind of in a new situation where we have full responsibility for these preservation, restoration. And I'm going to add, as part of our mission statement, use of the town's historic buildings. So that's my quick, it's a lot. So anyway, there you go. And I'll just leave it there for now because we've got a lot of people in there.
Yeah, and actually, that's so great, I'm glad you did so much, and I'm gonna amend the agenda, so I'll give each of you 2 to 3 minutes to share out. I wasn't sure how much people were gonna share, so, if we need to, table some of the discussion about collaborations, I think that's maybe more important or less important than actually sharing about our organizations. And if everyone's in agreement with that, does that sound good? So 2 to 3 minutes, so sharing the same things, but, I would rather you share more and we had more time together learning about one another's organizations than working on any future collaborations, because we can always do that. At that, Jeff, sorry to hold you up.
Oh, that's okay. So we have 2 organizations, and so the town has documents and artifacts that it owns. They've stored them for many years in a room in our town hall. 5 years ago, we got the use of another town building. And we've been using that as a history center for the last 5 years. And so we're open every week on Sunday for 2 hours. In the summertime now, we've started having a little bit of hours as well. So that's one of our activities. And the people actually doing the work was more on the 501c3. So this is kind of a funny thing what we did. This is kind of about our organization. We said, hey, we've got this town history stuff. And the town owns the materials. But hey, the labor to do all this and raise money to preserve it, we need a 501c3. So we created a 501c3. Now that most of the work and all is done in the process is a 501c3. We do an annual gala in the summertime, which raises money. We may actually break $50,000 worth of income this year. Part of that's because we've been raising money because we're going to be doing a major renovation of the history center to actually reformat the floor plan to make a much better history center. So that has been our strategic effort for this year. But going out 5 years, we'd actually like to expand it further, actually put a second floor on and be able to build more of a wing. So we have more of a real museum space. So part of what we did when we went to the history center, we have these heat pumps. We have a more stable environment for artifacts because in an unheated town hall, it's not great for things. So we've been really progressing a lot, but now at this stage of the game, we are looking at actually being more of a real history center. And oh, by the way, this year, the town voted to lease the history center building to the Friends, to the nonprofit, for $1 a year for the next 99 years. So we're then with that in place, we're putting a lot of money into the building and working with the select board.
Again, I'm Dave Boucher with the Edgecombe Historical Society. Mission is pretty standard, I think. Our goals wants to find a home, like Jeff was just mentioning, they found a full-blown home. We have the availability of town hall for our meetings. We are in the process of archiving about 40 or 50 years worth of collected papers and photographs. We've actually finished inventorying it, and just last night we starting to digitize, Becky can explain this one further, making a searchable database so that we can digitize things properly and search things out. That's our biggest goal at this point, to finish that. Volunteers, we don't have enough. The staff, we have the volunteers that are volunteering, they have the staff. Little budget. We don't really have a budget at this point. I've been with the Historical Society about 10 years. And I think after the COVID thing, we're on a probably fourth rebirth of the organization. There's been numerous times that it's fallen flat. I thought that it had only started in the early 90s, and through our archiving process, we found there's documents running back into the 60s when they were having meetings. Just I never got the memo. But our revenue is very irregular. We had a really good talk last weekend from the Penobscot Marine Museum. They did a postcard expose, and we had a good draw. A lot of people, I see a couple of faces here that were there. And it was great. We want to keep more of that going. A lot of people in town don't even know we exist. That's a fail on our part, but we don't have a center of town to talk about these things. Let's see, expenditures, we spend too much. But we're doing very well. During COVID, the president and at one time vice president, through the 90s, one of them passed away and left us still good inheritance, a little over $100,000. So that's given us the momentum, I guess, a little bit, helped us build a little momentum. So we're not going to get that every year, obviously. And we are still in the process of working up a maintenance revenue plan. We're trying to build a scholarship, plan for a scholarship, and find a way to endow the money for that. All the rest.
You covered most of it, but I was impressed by you saying that in all, you had 31 events in past year, and so I think that, yeah, doing these events and drawing in the town people and people from surrounding towns really kind of, seems like a really good starting place to start building recognition and get to these later points. Having a physical spot and a place to, you know, keep our archives. The archiving project, we're really just getting underway with determining what collections we have and deciding on how to best digitize and preserve them. And so, like, I'm interested in kind of the technical aspects of you know, best practices for cataloging and that kind of thing.
There's a million things going on, like everybody, we got 2 million things and we've got time to do one. Thank you.
I'm gonna let Kay start and then I'll jump in after. How's that?
Kay Wilder with the Region Historical Society. The society has been in business since 1967. We are the hub of the town or communities for archival information, stories, artifacts, everything. Which is why we are now working out of our building. We are in 1874 Elizabeth Reed House, which the town owns. So I understand some of the back and forth. We were talking about an expansion a few years ago. Maybe we would take over ownership, and that just didn't go through. So now our goal now is to make sure we know what we have, we're doing some decluttering over the next couple of months and realizing it's okay to get rid of things that don't meet your mission. You know, preserving, sharing, whatever. We are starting to collaborate more with local organizations. We co-sponsor events with different organizations in town. Our digitization project is pretty well along. We've been working on it for about 3 years. There's still a lot more to do. We have just over 20,000 photographs and things like that. And many documents. We also are collaborating with the town, with the register, with the register to digitize all of the editions going back to something. So that's a long process, and that's really good because that has our volunteers going up with us. That's a big ask to have somebody go up there and spend the day. So our goal, as I say, for the next year for sure, is to get to know what do we have, what do we need, what space can we dig out of what we already have, and what might we need to do to expand down the road. And Connie is our outreach and development director, and she's a big find for us. She's very outgoing in the community, so that's been different for us. So Connie, what are your goals?
Yeah, sure. So what I've been most excited about the past 6 months is that we've really been able to put together some great fundraising events, which I always refer to them as not only fundraising, but friend raising. So it's really worked because of the collaboration that we have made with folks in the community. Some businesses that haven't been connected with the society before are now connected with us, and folks want to sit on committees and help with different events that we have going on. We also, during our quieter times, which would be like February, March, and April, we're planning brown bag luncheons where we'll have guest speakers of folks within the community that will come in, and we're just going to, it's a great way to just invite folks into a casual environment and learn something. It's about some of the very gifted and crafted people within the community. So we're working on that as well. And like Kay referred to, the collaboration is really the key we're finding is really our success. And we've already have our 2026 calendar planned for the new year, which is sort of a mixture of fundraising, friend raising, and some other activities that we think folks will be interested in. And we have so we have myself and an office manager now there, and Kay is really she's the volunteer executive director really there, but we have other volunteers that come in and help and do a lot of research projects. And so, yeah, really excited about the way things are coming live and coming together.
And we just add that one of our issues is a lot of places are able to separate, they're either a research center or they're a museum. We keep having people tell us, you're trying to do both in one building. It's like, yeah, any suggestions would be, don't take it, but that is a problem for us as far as space. Yeah.
Michael Nico, so I started this new organization, Open House of History, in May or June. It's a nonprofit. We're based at the historic 1855 Custom House, which is next door to the Waldorf Theater. Our mission is to build empathy and connection through history, particularly in emotional engagement with the past. I come from an academic background. I work as been trained as a historian, and I greatly value the work of libraries and archivists for preserving material that then is used by scholars to generate new knowledge. And basically, what's in this room is essentially, well, museums or research centers, repositories for objects. Buildings are also for objects, so the built environment. And of course, with preservation being so important to public history, comes out of the era buildings. But my question was always, yeah, so for what? What are you objects? Why care about this? What what does it mean for the communities today? Can we find new ways to use them that illuminate our world today? Because for me, that's what history is all about. So I started this organization to develop programming and events around that question, and I've been trying all sorts of approaches and have other ideas I want to test out. But basically, I just wanted to introduce that question, which is how do we what's important about what we're doing and what more can history be? I feel like history is this common ground that brings everyone together, but I think we need to be thinking more about how to do that as much as how to preserve objects. Right now, I'm funding it, my project entirely myself. I do have a board because it's a nonprofit, but I'm essentially it's a staff of one. And we have no revenue, and my hopes for the coming years are to realize those goals. I got it.
You were.
Thanks. Giving me go to you.
Okay, Karen Haas, the Newcastle Historical Society. Where to start? We've been around for 25 years, 26 years, and we're just trying to preserve what we can of our history, because there's a lot of it. But we are in an unheated town building that was a fire station. Great location right on Main Street in Newcastle. It would be nice though to have a heated building. It would be nice to have some fire storage. So that's kind of something we have to think about over the next 5 years. Those are necessary. We probably have 50 or 60 members, and Mike and I, and maybe one other person or two other people who can do all the work. So we need more volunteers who are willing to help us we have a lot of projects that can fit anybody's interests. Like currently I'm trying to scan all of our documents. We've got file drawers full of documents and artifacts, and we have probably 60,000 negatives that we're trying to not digitize all of them. We're digitizing the ones that are most important. And I'm going through and cataloging all of them, and many of you will be receiving phone calls from us in the future. I won't say near future because this is a big project, but we'd like to take accession to better homes. We have a massive pile of Waldoboro negatives, a massive pile of South Bristol negatives. We have a massive pile of Bristol negatives. So organizations that would like to have those, we would be happy to make that happen. We do try to have a lot of programs in the summer to get the greater community involved in history. So we try to bring in some great speakers, fit and well attended. That and some merchandise, book sales, probably our meets for some revenue. We get enough revenue in to pay our bills. We don't have a lot of bills, so that obviously if we needed a new facility, we have to change. And we're such a small organization, we have no cemetery committee in town, so Mike and I and maybe one other person are out there trying to fix cemeteries and tombstones. We did 9 full 10-hour days this summer in a row working in one cemetery and Mike and I did, along with some professionals. So when you're small and in a small town, not a lot of volunteers, you end up doing everything. It's too much. I had to learn how to create a website. I mean, I do our Instagram, I do our Facebook. So it's hard. I think trying to have more friends. Yeah, it would be fantastic if friends would be willing to pitch in and help us. So I mean.
No, my main point that I was gonna make is we have a very small group of people doing a very large amount of work. And I just wanted to add that in spite of our having a very small cadre of people in Cambodia, we have done quite a few things, particularly this summer. We went through a major renovation of our little museum in the Tavistock building.
Yeah.
New displays, all thematic. We got some professionals we've got a professional to advise us. We're in a massive, we're meeting tomorrow, we're in a massive upheaval. We had the upper second floor of that building. We have all of our auxiliary things we don't have on display up there. We're reorganizing the entire space. We've got a lot of and we're on our acceptance system and documenting everything, storing everything properly as best we can without control. So we're a lot of things going on. We broke out till this workshop that in our town was that's good.
We did 9 days.
Yeah, not that many day workshop. We have a lot of things going on, doing a lot of.
It's a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah, we really are trying to make big. The issue is, we have a cadre of people who have been, devoted to this, but they're quite literally aging out of the system. Yeah.
We're the young.
We are the young people, right? Yeah. Most of it, there's only one person younger than me in the whole world. And so it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. But we do get good attendance. We got over 200 people at our museum at Pumpkin Fest, So we do touch, we reach out to a lot of people. We do think that it's sparking interest in people having come in, but it's a difficult slog. It's fine, thanks, Karen.
Alright. So we at the Francis Perkins Center, I resonate with a lot of what I'm hearing from other people. We just became a national monument in December, at a time when the presidential administration was about to change. So we were designated December 16th by President Biden. And so we are right now navigating this new partnership with the National Park Service, who now own our facility, that we operate in. So during the government shutdown, didn't have access to our offices. It's great, like I hear working with the towns, that the government is now financially responsible for stewarding the place and making sure that it is, just properly cared for, but in the interim period right now, it's a confusing time for our organization, just not having as strong of a partnership with the National Park Service that a lot of other organizations had already built, prior to positive freezes in the Park Service. So that's one side of what we're doing is actually, we are still then caring for the site as people, even if we're not doing it financially, theoretically anymore. So we were responsible as the 501c3 official philanthropic partner of the National Monument to open the site this summer, which was amazing. The last summer, so not this year, but last year, we had about 1,200 people come and visit the site, which was wonderful. This summer, as a national monument, national park, we had over 4,000 people. So it was a big increase, yeah. So despite the challenges of working with the Park Service, just having that co-branding, being on their app, having that visibility has been amazing. We also, as the 501c3, we kept all of the things, the collection that we purchased from Francis Perkins's last living descendant. So we are in a collections management database. We're figuring out what to digitize. We're working with other collections nationally where she had left some of her things to figure out where to point people, and make sure that information about her and her collection is accessible to researchers. And then the other side of our mission that I will mention before I pass it to Lindsay for her thoughts is what Michael said really resonated with me, more than just being a place. And now, especially that the federal government owns the place itself and will then also take over the interpretation of the site at some point.
A significant part of our mission is how we are engaging future generations in the legacy of Frances Perkins. So not only teaching her story, which is going to be one of our focuses for next year, kind of formalizing a curriculum, making sure that students are learning about Frances Perkins, especially the name. But how are we really engaging and inspiring future generations to understand the government's role in economic justice, social justice? So bringing that history to life and making it less theoretical and actually something that future generations see themselves as a part of is something that we're focusing on both here and nationally. We're working with partners to make sure that we're continuing that conversation. Anything to add?
I think just I would add, you know, I'm hearing a lot of the same echoes around volunteers, for example, and, you know, our organization is pretty small. We do have a staff, which sets us apart from a lot of folks in this room. But that said, you know, operating the monument, 5 days a week in the summertime, required a lot of our minimal staff. And we bring on interns in the summertime, that really help us open the doors for that. But this coming year, we're really gonna be looking at building out an actual volunteer program to continue to be able to do more at the site. We also, in addition to the homestead itself and the national monument that we open up during the season, year round, have trails on our property that are really well traveled. And so that's another area that, you know, needs help. We're trying to figure out how we are responsible stewards of the land that we are caring for. So
As we retain that, the national monument boundaries is 57 acres, but the government only owns 2 acres, but are right around the property, so we still have 55 acres that we, as a nonprofit, and so.
yeah, and thinking about the interpretation on the trails too, you know, there's the experience of just being on the trails and making sure that they're enjoyable and safe. But I think that's another big goal for us, trying to bring the story of the land and the uses of the land into, you know, actually having some interpretation on the site would be really exciting. I have so many thoughts. Everyone said something that's true for my organization, but you know, you're gonna die because there's just not how many volunteers we had last year. We had 100. It's not enough, and it's not enough at all. We have 3 historic houses, no moving on. House museums in Jeremy in Dresden and here in Wisconsin, and so, you know, all of a sudden it starts to kind of spread people out a little bit, and some of those volunteers only leave an hour last year. But yeah, we're struggling always with volunteers. We don't have a kind of controlled storage space for our collections. We're also working on, you know, managing our collections and archives and making sure everything is entered and tracked. Also very interested in making sure we're keeping these buildings for use, not just to sit there and be empty, and interested in what you said as well, you know, why are we doing this for, to what end and what's the connection? So basically everything the same. But I will say I am part-time, I am a part-time paid staff person, and we also have a 12-hour a week educator. So we do a little more staff than most of you. And what else do I want to say? You mentioned the volunteers. It's a constant struggle to have enough volunteers. Every year we think we're gonna have to reduce our hours, or we're going to have to, limit our program or something because we don't have the volunteer force that we could use. But you know, we just keep plugging along. In terms of goals, I guess, I'm a big believer in not adopting a strategic plan that's not feasible. And so we don't have a strategic plan right now because I don't think our board is in a position to be really realistic about where we actually are. So, you know, we're kind of year to year right now. But that doesn't mean we don't have bigger goals, but I don't want to spend hours and hours on writing a plan to let just sit there. So we're, I've got a great board of directors, and I think we're all really aligned with sort of our general path forward right now. Without those goals being fully defined.
And how many physical sites do you?
We have 3 physical sites, the Chapman Hall House in Jeremy, the old jail and jailer's house.
Yeah, I'll make sure to send out everyone's contact information. Thank you, Shannon. For our online folks, Ben Pye from the Monhegan Museum had to step out, so I thought I'd just give her a brief overview. So Jen Pye is from the Monhegan Museum. If you don't know about it, it's up on the hill on Monhegan at the lighthouse, and they have 8 staff, from what I can tell on their library or their website. They're open from mid-June to late September, so they're very busy. Obviously, they have a huge influx of tourism, and I was looking at their prices. I think it's $10 per adult or something like that. So pretty expensive, but a great like value, right, on an island. They have an incredible archive and display. I used some of their stuff when I was out there visiting with engineers working on their wharf design for their wharf redesign and their breakwater, and it was invaluable for us to look at the historical background of the museum itself. So for uses of history, that's another interesting one. They also have a gallery, so the museum's in the lighthouse if you haven't been there, and then they have a gallery with art exhibits, and they did have a show. They partnered with Bowdoin College and did a pretty cool ecological art collaboration, looking at the historical ecology of the island over time and the impact of humans on their landscape. So I think I can't give any more details than that, but I thought it was worth just mentioning a little bit about their museum. If you haven't been out there, it's worth a visit, and I'm sure that Jen would be happy to promote the rest of Lincoln County's areas. And so it's funny because Lincoln County, Monhegan's in our county, but to get there in the winter time, you have to go through Knox County. But we think of them all the time, and so we hope everyone else in Lincoln County does too. At that, I'll turn to the rest of our online folks, which are Peggy and Jody, and I'll let you two decide who wants to go first. So go ahead, Peggy. Looks like you want to go.
Okay. Well, I'm Peggy Knitsky, and I am the Midcoast Maine site manager for Historic New England. And we are a regional historic preservation organization and based, well, I was going to say based out of Boston, but we're not anymore. Based out of Haverhill, really. And I manage 4 museums, 4 historic sites for Historic New England, 3 of which are in Lincoln County, as I mentioned. So I manage Castle Tucker and Nichols Sortwell House in Wiscasset and Bowman House in Dresden. We have paid staff, and so I have about 10 people to care for and welcome the public during our open season, which is June through mid-October, with the exception of Nichols Sortwell House, because we also have a program in December at that house. And even with paid staff, it's hard to find people. And we're having a real aging of the fleet. We have a wonderful group, but you know, at approaching 70 myself, I'm one of the younger people. So that's going to be a problem going forward, I think. In terms of budget, Historic New England has a budget, and then which are unrestricted funds, and then we have restricted funds, which are include the endowment for individual houses. And I'm lucky enough to have some of the lowest endowments Historic New England has ever had. So my challenge is always going to be raising funds to match what the organization to give to get critical maintenance things done. And Historic New England has changed from what we used to be, which was the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities, all about objects, all about buildings. And now we are all about somebody mentioned this before, what's the real reason we're doing this? What's the real reason why preserving history is important, why preserving these buildings are important? And even more importantly, these days, preserving the stories of all the various people who have lived in, rented, worked at our various sites. So we're focused very strongly on that. And so my job from an organizational standpoint is to carry forward that work in our region. But then locally, it's also for us to become part of the community where we are. So a lot of my time, in addition to managing the guides. I have a colleague, Tim Peltzer, who is our preservation manager. And so he takes care of the concerns for the physical building and the landscape. And I do everything else. But we work very closely together, fortunately, very well. But so I have really focused for the last, and this will be my 20th season. And prior to that, I was with Lincoln County Historical Association before Shannon, before going back to school. So I've been doing Wiscasset history for 25 years. And so we are very involved with the community. I'm on the Wiscasset Creative Alliance board. And the Creative Alliance purpose is pretty much in the title, is to bring together all the various cultural organizations in Wiscasset and figure out how we can do things that are great for the community. So we do that. I'm also the president of the Wiscasset Museum in the Streets program, which is a 13+ year program that we've done. We had no idea we'd still be working on this 13 years later, but we have 30 panels throughout the town that tell the stories of the built environment. So we take what the eye sees and then talk about who was there and what happened, and hopefully do that in a way that increases people's interest. We have a mobile app for the Museum in the Streets Walk, which, by the way, we got for free by attending a New England Museum Association conference. So any conference you can go to, go, because sometimes there's some really good stuff you can get. We're at a pivotal point now because we lost one of our major panels, so we're having to fundraise for that. And the panels need to be updated. History and the world has changed a lot in the last 13 years. And we need to bring our program up to speed there. But we also participate in Art Walk. We work with the Plein Air Painters of Maine. We work with LCHA. Shannon is also on the board of Museum in the Streets. Shannon, I'm not letting you walk away from that. So we do a lot of things in the community. And in addition, as somebody who's been doing history in Wiscasset for 25 years, I try to help and make myself available to anybody who ever needs to tap into that for anything in a way that will make our community better. Because I don't want all the files and all the research that I've done over the last 20 years to go away or to be missed. So our goal is really to make history a vital part of everything the community does. And so far, it's working really well. I have to, Wiscasset has come a long way in the last 20 years, and it's wonderful right now. So the museums themselves, 1807, Castle Tucker, Nichols Sortwell House couldn't have more different stories. One, it used to be, Nichols Sortwell House story was rich family, tragic ending, rich white family, happy ending. Now we talk about the people who worked in the house. It was a hotel for 84 years. We talk about where did the money to build Wiscasset come from? So we talk about Wiscasset's and Lincoln County's connections to the global slave trade. And what does that mean? And who are the people there? And at Bowman House, we know there were enslaved people there, and we tell their stories. And we're going to be doing that more deeply as we go forward. In terms of programs, I do programs at all the houses. Historic New England, we charge admission, but really every time we open our doors, we lose money. That's not where our income comes from. We're completely dependent on donors and membership. But as I said, the museums are open from June to October, and we do guided tours only. We don't do in walkthrough, with the exception of the Nichols Christmas program, which is the first weekend in December. And the only reason we started doing that was because the community was doing something. So we're part of the Wiscasset Holiday Market Fest. And so I think if I covered everything there, I think that's all. So basically, I do one fundraising program for Castle Tucker a year, and that's cocktails at the castle in the summer, because Castle Tucker is a very needy girl. No matter how much work we do on it, there's always more. It Unfortunately, it looks like it will always leak, no matter how much masonry work or window repair you do and everything else. And it has, as I said, one of the very smallest endowments. So I do that one fundraiser specifically for Castle Tucker every summer.
Hey, thanks, Peggy, I appreciate that. I love Castle Tucker. We've got about 5 minutes left, so Jody, if you want to wrap up, and then we might go a tiny bit over time, just to wrap things up really quickly, but I'll make it really. So Peggy, if you want to just cap it off with.
I can't hear you. Your voice is cutting in and out.
Okay. Jody, do you want to go next?
Sure, sure. And apologies, I hope my voice holds out. I'm getting over COVID and I've got a pretty amazing COVID cough, so we'll see how we do. OBHS, Old Bristol Historical Society, has been around since 2003. And a few years ago, we had the opportunity to purchase a campus. So that was the old Poole Brothers lumber yard. And so that came with a couple of buildings and this incredible old mill, which is really cool. And we made a history center out of the Poole Brothers building. So we're kind of in a transition. I mean, that group, that was before I joined, and that group was able to raise a whole bunch of money to purchase and do a lot of work to those buildings. But now we find ourselves in, I don't know. I mean, I think there may be some fatigue in that people gave a lot of money for that, but now it's not as jazzy to give money to keep the lights on. We're lucky enough to have a small staff. We've got a part-time executive director, a part-time archivist, and a part-time administrative person. So that's a big jump for us, but it kind of comes with responsibility for raising the money to keep paying those folks. So we're in the same boat as everybody else. We don't have enough volunteers to do all the things we want to do. We do a lot of things. We do a lot of programming. We have a lecture series, and we try to do workshops for historic crafts and all kinds of things. And we do a lot of collaborating with local organizations. And we also try to get into the school where we go in and we teach some classes, history classes. And right now we've got a cool project that we're building a bateau with the 7th grade. It's a replica of the bateaus that were used on the Benedict Arnold expedition. So that's really fun. And we're hoping, like the rest of you, I mean, we've got an aging group that's doing all of this. So we're kind of hoping that that's going to bring in some new young blood, but we don't know that. I mean, that we're at the beginning of that idea. So yeah, I mean, I would say we're doing well. But we have big dreams and we'd like to do more. And that's just going to require more people. And we'd love ideas on how we can make that happen and how you folks are finding volunteers. And we need to do more big fundraising events, I guess. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And I just want to say that looking out over the next few years, there is going to be a big event coming up in 2028 that Colonial Pemaquid is spearheading. It's basically a commemoration of 400 years of Pemaquid history. So that's going to be, events that will happen all the way from June through October of that year. A lot of collaboration will happen. So we'll be reaching out to a lot of you, I'm sure, for ideas and help in that.
Thank you,
enough.
Jody, and hope you feel better. Well, thank you everybody for sharing a little bit more about. We are pretty much at time at noon, and I don't like to go over meetings. Emily knows I like to keep them efficient. I obviously didn't make this one long enough, so I apologize for that. I will put out an email with some notes and the recording and contact info. I'd love to have another meeting, maybe in February or March. We're all in a seasonal I think economy, so having meetings during those times seem to be pretty good. And let's continue these conversations. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that I am the local whatever, I do technical assistance for Northern Border Regional Commission, which is a commission that has a grant twice a year in the spring and in the fall. I provide technical assistance to help organizations and municipalities apply for grants through these funds. Lincoln County is newly eligible as of last spring. So if you get a chance, just check that out. I'll put a link in the email that I send out afterwards. But it's a great opportunity. It's an economic development grant. So when I think about possibilities for historical societies and museums, cultural heritage and tourism, a collaboration around that would be a really great Northern Border Regional Commission application, not to put an idea out there without any legs, but that is just one to think about. I think individually it'd be hard for an application for one individual historical society, but certainly something could happen collaboratively. The other thing I do is I'm a county advisor for Maine Community Foundation. So I wouldn't be doing my job in that role if I didn't let you know that. Of course, think about applying for a community impact grant. I think that's what they're called, I should know. But these are $10,000 grants that are capacity building, sorry. They're great grants. First of all, Maine Community Foundation loves historical nonprofits, and they also support just capacity funding. And there aren't a lot of grants like that out there. And over the past few years, we've funded a bunch of historical museums and societies, so think about that. And of course, there's never enough money, so always encourage people to donate to that fund. I think that kind of wraps it up. If there's anything else anybody wants to just throw out there, any upcoming events that you want everyone to know about, other than that,
Sorry, quick question.
yes,
Ignorant question, can you define capacity funding?
capacity funding, great. Yeah, that's the nonprofit jargon right there.
Okay, yeah.
So oftentimes funders will want to fund like a tangible asset, something like a building or a project or something that's not like an ongoing fund. Maine Community Foundation capacity building grants are designed with knowledge that nonprofits know what they're doing and they're really strapped. And so they provide an opportunity for small nonprofits to apply for capacity funding. So maybe it funds some staffing, maybe it funds ongoing needs for a building or something like that. It could be a specific project, but it's a really great grant. There aren't a lot of grants out there that don't make you basically run through a Ferris wheel or like jump through hoops to explain what new and exciting thing you're doing. Maine Community Foundation recognizes that nonprofits know what they're doing and oftentimes are financially challenged. So definitely look into those. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time. Oh, Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Peggy said about the importance, what she believes she's doing and making history a vital part of what everyone does or a vital part of the community. And I agree with that, but I would assume that we actually probably don't fully understand what that means, or that we're all in agreement on what that means. And I would also suggest that a more powerful shared understanding of what that means with examples and language might actually help attract the volunteers and the money that is out there. I do believe that there is just a disconnect between what people think history is or is for and whether they feel included in that and why or why not. And I think if we put together a more concerted effort into clarifying or asking the question more broadly, even opening up to others to help answer that would encourage enthusiasm and hopefully volunteering and active support for everyone. So I would suggest that we create a meeting maybe just to have that conversation, and hear everyone's viewpoints and where they stand with that.
Great, I'm glad that you mentioned that, and that's a really great suggestion. So yeah, we'll definitely keep that in mind for a topic for another conversation, and I hope everybody continues to think about that. And visits, of course, the House of History. It's really cool if you haven't been there yet. But thank you, everybody. I'll let you all go now, and I will send a follow-up email, and again, thank you for your time and energy.
Yeah.